We're watching a strong cold front along with the powerful upper level low that will bring a big snowstorm later this week. And yet another hurricane is heading into the Gulf of Mexico. So let's take a look at the setup going forward. We've got this just ridge of high pressure that's been dominating a good part of the Northeast. We've had a lot of sinking air across that region and continues to remain on the drier side. But out west, we have yet another powerful system coming in with a pretty significant cold front. This is the strongest low pressure likely of the season diving into the Four Corners region. That will actually bring some snow later on this week. Plus, we're watching the tropics yet again as we have Rafael, that is now a named storm that's looking to go into the Gulf of Mexico as a hurricane by the time we head into tomorrow into Thursday. So here is the setup. What we're looking at here is the more significant dip in the jet stream yet again. We've seen several of these systems, but this one's pretty powerful. Plus, it has a lot more colder air with it. So it's going to be a deepening area of low pressure. At the same time, we'll be watching what's coming out of Jamaica, where they do have the tropical storm warnings, and that will head over to the Cayman Islands tomorrow afternoon as a hurricane, then make landfall in Cuba, and then go back into the Gulf of Mexico and as a hurricane by the time we head into your Thursday time frame. So if we look at the setup on the satellite picture, we had the storms yesterday across the middle part of the country. We did in fact had several confirmed tornadoes in and around the Oklahoma region, portions of Kansas, as well as Arkansas. Some stronger wind gusts further south into Texas. Then now that front is elongated across the Houston region, back into Arkansas, as well as into areas of Missouri. That's where they're seeing the showers and thunderstorms today. You still got the ridge out here off across the Northeast, and there is what's now Rafael. And this is the high pressure that is going to be steering this northwestward heading into the Gulf of Mexico. But we'll be watching this storm system. This is the powerful upper level low, and the timing of this with the stronger cold front as this dives southeastward, it will likely eventually start to feel the effects of Rafael coming on and start pulling it further north and eventually heading it northeast as we get later in the week. So here's the setup right now on the satellite picture. We can actually see Rafael down here into the Caribbean, and that's going to continue to strengthen now up into a Category 1 hurricane heading through the Cayman Islands, crossing over Cuba, and then likely re-emerging into the Gulf of Mexico by the time we head into Thursday into Friday. Now, as it continues to lift northwestward, it is expected to start to weaken, feeling the beginning effects of this stronger cold front that will be diving in from the northwest down into the southeast. That will bring a lot of snowfall eventually into the Rockies, a good part of Colorado, as well as into New Mexico, and eventually even portions of western Texas, the panhandle of Texas, as well as into western Oklahoma. This is actually a pretty significant, actually the strongest cold front we've seen so far. The strongest low pressure that has more of a cold core with it. And it's pretty significant. And although it is going to be fairly somewhat isolated across that region, it's going to bring a lot of colder air and bring a lot of snow with it, because it's got a lot of moisture returning as it's going to be tapping into that area of low pressure. Plus, it opens the door yet again for the Gulf of Mexico to bring more showers and thunderstorms back into Texas. So here's on the water precipitable index. You can see what we're looking at here. There is Rafael up here into the Gulf. This is on Thursday afternoon. Likely this is going to be a right front quadrant loaded system, which a lot of hurricanes are. That's going to spread heavy rains back into Florida, as well as into southern portions of Alabama, getting into Georgia, back through the Carolinas. But it'll also open the door again for the moisture return with this strong upper level low coming in from the northwest. that will supply more moisture back into Texas and to Kansas, as well as into Oklahoma, and bring more heavy rain, as well as we're watching this strong cold front that will be really dropping the temperatures big time, 20, 25, uppers to almost 30 degrees below average heading into your Thursday afternoon. It's a sharp temperature gradient with the warmer air off to the east and the much colder air off to the west, complements of that strong, more significant upper level low. And it should start ringing the showers and then freezing that heading into this big time snow. So we should start to see some really amplified heavy snow starting to fall into Colorado, back into New Mexico, eventually heading into even portions of western Kansas, western Oklahoma, and the far outskirts of the Texas Panhandle. There is Rafael reemerging back out into the Gulf of Mexico, heading in. That's on Wednesday, but more amplified on Thursday as the moisture returns back yet again for a good part of Texas. More beneficial rains will be coming back in the picture for them. More into Oklahoma as the snow will start to fly on the colder side of the storm, and much of the ski resorts in Colorado back into areas of New Mexico. And yes, that does include far outskirts of the Texas Panhandle and western Oklahoma as well. And yes, what is this, folks? That is yet another little system. The National Hurricane has highlighted a 20% probability, another low pressure continuing, and that's also heading towards the Bahamas. That could bring some more rain showers for them and try to become its own storm. If that does actually come to fruition, that would be Sarah. So it's still busy out in the tropics as we're continuing to be under, hurricane season. But by the time we head into Friday, yeah, it definitely opens the door. So you've got a lot of dynamics happening. What's going on? You've got Rafael down there in the Gulf. You've got this low pressure center building just north of the Puerto Rico region that's heading towards the Bahamas. And then there's the moisture returning back yet again for a good part of the southern plains, as the snowstorm will start to be on its way winding down by then. So I think it gets going on tomorrow. It really builds on Thursday and starts to wind down on Friday with a lot of heavy snow. These snowfall totals are likely going to be pretty impressive, while it continues to remain on the drier side for a good part of the mid-Atlantic as well as in the Northeast. I don't think that changes until Rafael makes landfall and starts maybe possibly heading your way. So here's to some of the snow that's going to be taking place across the Rockies. Yes, some of this area could include New Mexico. This is going to be a pretty significant snowfall for the ski resorts out here, but also for western, far outskirts of the western panhandle of Oklahoma, and then can't even roll out snow flying in the far outskirts of the Texas Panhandle. So yes, first big snowstorm of the season for that part of the region, and we'll be watching the remnants of what was likely be Rafael. So what's going to happen is, first, you got the dynamics with the high pressure that's locked over the East Coast. That's what actually steers this northwestward, but then eventually it will be feeling the effects of that cold front. So as it does, that's going to put the brakes on Rafael and start to shift it further north. And eventually, as that cold front gets a little bit closer, it will actually swing it and lift what will likely be a tropical storm by then, making landfall somewhere in the vicinity of from New Orleans to the Florida Panhandle. But likely most of the precipitation will spread into Florida, a good part of Georgia, as well as into portions of Alabama and South Carolina. But yeah, look at the winds, right? So this, remember the GFS when it was more or less in kind of fantasy land 10 days ago, when it was painting a picture of a hurricane down in this region off the coast of Florida? Now it's not so fantasy land anymore, because yes, there will be a hurricane off the coast of Florida by the time we head into Thursday, Friday timeframe, but it will continue to lift further north, and then eventually I think gets pulled, weakens to a tropical storm, and then gets pulled northward, feeling the effects of that cold front coming in from the northwest. But overall, this is what it looks like as far as precipitation between now and Saturday morning. So you've got the drying out for the next 2 days across the middle part of the country. And then the big low pressure builds across the Rockies. That will dump the snow across those regions and dump heavier rain as the Gulf of Mexico's open back up for business, spread more rains back into North Texas, a good part of Oklahoma where they just got clocked over the last couple of days. And then here's up into Kansas as well. And then this would likely be all from Rafael, from the right front quadrant remnants spreading out, and the shear that's coming from the cold front will lower it to a tropical storm and then push it inland, and then would likely spread its rains inland. So this is likely from portions of western Tennessee, western Kentucky, likely from what may be to come from the combination of the cool front and the overall the remnants of Rafael as it makes landfall. So as it does, yes, that's going to spread more rains back into portions of the southeast, getting into the Ohio Valley. There's your low pressure center starting to wind down as it continues to lift off to the northeast. But notice where the rains go. They actually spread eventually into the northeast. So that won't be likely until Sunday. But for these areas that really haven't seen much as of late for many weeks, you do at least get a shot of precipitation from the remnants would likely be of Rafael by the time we head into Sunday over a good part of the mid-Atlantic as well as into the northeast. So this is going to be a welcome sight for those areas. But if we break it down for you over the next 10 days, we're still in this pattern where we basically have the ridge of high pressure. We've got the dominating southeast ridge locked over that region. We do have cold fronts come in, but they don't really push too far to the east. They get blocked by this ridge of high pressure from the southeast ridge and the ridge of high pressure that's locked over the east coast. So most of the cold air stays out to the west. Most of the warm air stays out to the east. And then the middle part of the country, that is your battle zone. And that's going to open up the Gulf of Mexico. So it's going to actually continue on the wet side. So after this area has been bone dry for the entire month of October, it's going to be really active, and it continues to remain active over the next week to 10 days from what I see coming. So, but overall, if we look at the stratosphere, there's really not any Arctic air, folks. I mean, going up into the higher elevations and way up into the northern hemisphere, yeah, there's your polar vortex, which is a strong polar vortex. Whenever it's strong, it bottles up any Arctic air there is well up into the Arctic, and it's just not allowed to sink into the United States. So even though we do get these little cool or maybe cold fronts coming in out west, there's nothing sustainable. There's nothing, any Arctic air to speak of. And this would likely be through the middle of November. So for now, I appreciate you guys watching. Do like this video. Definitely hit the subscribe button and catch the next update. Why I protect you before and after storm.